Hi everyone, and welcome along to the
Hi.
Monday edition of the Endless Celts Podcast. We're slightly later than planned, but we had a wee bit of a false start there, and then we've got a wee late guest there in Ross McCall, and obviously our very own Anthony. How are you doing, guys?
All good, man. All good. Glad to be here as always, especially after that weekend.
Aye, we'll get right into that just shortly. It was very enjoyable yesterday. Did you see any of the game yesterday, Ross?
I did. Yes, I obviously, I'm in California, so I woke up to the news, shall we say, and then I was like, nah. And then I went and watched the highlights. I wouldn't watch a full replay, to be fair, but I watched the highlights, and for the first time in a long time, I was absolutely cheering for Ross County, and they
Yeah.
did us a solid, I think.
Yeah, they definitely came up trumps. But as I say, we'll get into that. But before that, our very own Wally has created a video to let you guys see what's coming up tonight. So if my glamorous assistant Anthony could press play on that.
I mean, the fact that you've got
And that was a short film brought to you by Endless Celts Productions. It was Wally does good with him.
I haven't been on for a while, and I turn up,
Uh-huh.
and now you've got assistants, you've got like little special movies coming on. I mean,
None of us get paid for this, by the way.
Oh no, I'm quite the diva. So
there's assistants. Doesn't matter who needs money when you've got assistants.
No, Wally started doing the videos in the last wee while, and he does a really good job with them. I think he does it on TikTok, which I don't have no idea how to work, but Wally is quite the dab hand at it. But listen, before we get right into the podcast, I just want to welcome the viewers. Again, thanks for tuning in. We've got Robert Davey, Monty, Patrick McLaughlin, 420 somewhere, Jed. So all the usual faces in the comments. Before we get right into the podcast, Anthony, I'll ask you again, my glamorous assistant, to bring up the Super Six table for the weekend.
You're reading it out, though.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Don't have a problem with that. We've got Joe Finlay at the top. I think that's the first time he's hit top spot this season. So he's coming into his own just at the end. Then we've got Mark Robertson, Ryan Taylor, Alistair Jack. He's usually always floating about up there. Stephen Coulthard, the same. He won it last year. Kieran Gilhooly is in sixth place. Kevin Hampsey in 7th. And then we've got 3 of our own guys, Anthony Dunn, William Dobbin and Francis Carty, making up the top 10. So it's quite tight between, 4:15 is the leader, and I think Franny's on 3:17 there. So there's about 100 points actually, so it's not that tight in the top 10. But at the top of the leaderboard, there's only 5 points between the top three. So could get quite interesting towards the end of the season to see who's going to get the wee prize. But that's that, and we'll move into obviously the weekend's events, and we'll start at Celtic Park. And I'll just, since you've not been on for a while, Ross, I'll just come to yourself first. I'm assuming you got to see the match, and just give me your thoughts, a sort of wee brief overview of how you felt the game went.
So I was looking forward to us being back at Parkhead, obviously, and watching the game unfold. You know, it was one of those first halves where, you know, at the end of the 45, you're going, we're not putting these away. What's going on? And then I thought we were absolutely electric when we came out. Hatate's goal, stunner. I mean, I'm just so happy that he's back. I'm so happy. I mean, I would concur with what others have said. I do think he's arguably one of the best players in the land. And so when he's in full fitness and he's, you know, having the game that he has, you know, that first touch and that shot, cracker. I love seeing Kyogo score. I think Brendan said it in one of his presses, and it's so true. I think now with the added competition up front, or maybe not competition, but now that we have got somebody that seems to be able to score up there as well, Kyogo's game is, you know, coming back to where it once was. So it's nice to see the fella in amongst the goals, and a cracking header. I mean, you know, he was free, but it's a great header. And then of course Adam at the end. I mean, you know, he's come to us under much noise. You know, did we buy right? Did we or loan somebody right? You know, was it really our ideal signing in January? And I think all of us were a bit maybe less than impressed. But boy, has he turned that around. You know, I think we'd all, if we could buy him, I think we would all have him now. Because he comes on and, you know, he just does that strikers thing and nicks in when he has to. And I just didn't feel that there was much threat against us. Once we had that first goal, I thought that was it. You know, I thought, yeah, we'll win it. And elated to get the points, and then elated at the turn of events on Sunday.
Aye, absolutely. The chain of events on Sunday. Just listen, it was obviously in our hands, so to speak, already, but now without having to beat them, if you like. Obviously, you want to beat them, but it's in our hands at the moment. They have to come to Parkhead and win now. A draw doesn't do them anymore.
And I will say, if we play, and I've said this often, if we play the way that we play, they won't get near us. If we play the way that we play, because you know, when you're watching the teams, we're a far superior footballing outfit than our closest rivals, and that was evident when we played them. I know I missed the show last week, and I was gutted because I wanted to talk about it, but you know, I was gutted that we got a draw. I know it's great going to Ibrox and getting a draw, but should have come away with all the points, and I think everybody felt that. We're a far better footballing outfit. They got, you know, very dubious decision, which helped them get the point. They celebrated it like they'd, you know, won something major for themselves, which is always a big telling tale. You know, the fact that they went around and did the lap of honor and the fans were in on it. They're petrified of Celtic being as good as we are. So if we go out and we play our game, it is in our hands, and you know, we should be able to maneuver this.
All right, listen, I totally agree with that. I think that Celtic have got the better players, and they've got the players that can do it in big moments. But I think they have to put, like certainly in a game like that, I think it has to be an 80.
Sorry, carry on.
That's all right. An 80 or 90-minute performance. I don't. Obviously, we turned in a 45-minute performance at Ibrox, so it was enough to get a draw. But you need to turn in a performance over a bigger or a larger chunk of the game. But I think at Parkhead, I'm supremely confident that we can beat them there. But just coming to yourself, Anthony, on the game, just how you felt it went. I'm not sure. Did you see the game? I think you did see the game. But I just how you felt it went.
Sorry, mic's always on mute. Yeah, unfortunately, I have to hold my hands up and say that I didn't watch the game on Saturday. I was too busy driving my van around. But I've caught up on all the highlights as much as you can, and obviously you see all the talking points and the key stuff. The game itself, I listened to it on the radio as well, she did, so I did know what was happening as it was going. But it does seem like one of those games, as always for this season, game of two halves. We either play great in the first half, shite in the second, or vice versa. And it seems to be that case. It was a bit of a slug in the first half. But the second half, by all accounts, from what I've seen, absolutely electric again. You see the goal, it was the Ida's goal, we worked for them going forward. It's a bit of a counter press from Jimmy Forrest from the right side, comes over to the left, rebounds up in the air for Ida for the header. And it's a well-worked kind of team goal on the counter. It's a great moment. I just want to say, I think, who was it who said it in the comments just a moment back, Joe Findlay, with the wind. That's 2 weeks in a row, guys, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent, but I think if we're going to talk about a game with two halves and what was going on, that wind played a part. It really, really played a part. You saw it with, was it Kuno Yang on the left side, and they go to make a forward pass in the first half, well, an inside forward pass, and the ball just holds up in the wind on the deck, completely holds up, and you hear the boos in the stadium, and then St Mirren get the ball and they kind of counter down their side, and obviously it doesn't come to anything because it's 3-0 at the end of the day, but that anxiety is in there in the team. But come the second half, we've obviously found something. The wind's still against you, but you found something. You see that second half performance, which is, as I said already earlier on just now, it's an electric performance. It's 3 really, really good goals from the players. Hatate, as Ross says, it's great to have him back. He's up there as one of the best players in the league right now, and I only have to say one of the best because it sometimes is debatable when you look at guys like Cal McGregor and Matt Riley who play alongside him. They complement each other so well, and all 3 of them really are phenomenal players. It's a midfield that you can't at our level really do much better with. But overall, what a game, what a weekend. As we say, you wake up in the Sunday morning, we've all, apart from Ross, he's obviously still in his bed at this time, but we're all watching the scores come in, scared to look at the screen. We're not turn it on. We see once it went 3-1. Well, I turned that on. I turned that on to make sure I saw Chris Boy's face at the end.
I'm sure we were all the same. I didn't actually have the game on, similar to you, and then once it went 3-1, I was doing a couple of things with my daughter, and then once I got that taken care of, there was about 10 minutes to go in the Rangers game. I put it on. I think it was still 3-1 at the time, and then they got it to 3-2. But that's by the by. In terms of I was going to say the Livingston game, the St Mirren game. For me, in the first half, I felt like, I agree with Ross, it wasn't the greatest first half performance. And at this stage of the season, you want to get that early goal to take away the nervousness. I think we played okay in the first half. It was good patches of play, but there was no end product. Kuhn's delivery wasn't great. Alistair Johnston's delivery wasn't great. Yang was, I don't like to say it because I defended him on Friday night, but he was a bit of an empty jersey in that first half. But listen, I still think he's got ability there, and I still think there's hope for him. I certainly think as his sort of attributes, he can grow and be better. But whether he's got the mentality to play for Celtic is still up for question as well. But we'll get into that a wee bit later. But I'll just come back to yourself, Ross. You briefly touched on Hatate's goal, but I mean, it was a phenomenal goal, and that's the type of thing that we've been missing in this team for large chunks of the season because he has been out. Anthony had alluded there to like Matt O'Reilly and Cal McGregor and how they complement each other, and they absolutely do. But Hatate, he can just come up with moments like that. It's absolutely no right for me to score that goal. Alistair Johnston gets the assist, but what a finish, eh?
Yeah, it was stunning to watch, and I'll brush on Ali Johnson as well, because I think you're right. I think he was sort of like having a quiet first half, but I thought he was brilliant in the second half. I thought he was really like, a standout for me in the second half. Crack ball, great one touch, and then, rifles it top bin. and just one of those off your seat moments, and I felt that once we had that breakthrough, that was it. I often say this: unless we have a real calamity, teams like St Mirren, I mean, no disrespect, but they shouldn't get near us. They just shouldn't. The size of the club and the resources that we have. So it's just when you do that first 45 minutes, you're right. There's a little bit of nervousness within the crowd, and you're like, oh, come on. But listen, we can't always score a goal in 40 seconds like we did at Ajax.
That would be nice if you could, but that's just not how it works. Absolutely. But see, for me, I don't know what you think of this, Anthony. I think that there was that period, obviously, late December, and then we had the break, and then it was after the sort of winter break when we came back. It was very disjointed, and you were nervous, and people were calling for Rodgers' head and stuff like that. And listen, you cannot defend it. It wasn't good for chunks of this season. But I think the difference now is we're getting players back, and for me, going into these games and during the games, I feel like, albeit we're not playing scintillating, absolutely brilliant football and blowing teams away, but I don't ever feel that we're not going to get the job done now like I did late December, early sort of February. I think that's the change in the team, and I think you have to credit Brendan Rodgers for that, as well as the players who, a lot of them have been written off, but they're starting to come up trumps at the stage of the season domestically, certainly when it matters.
No, definitely. I think that feeling we all had at the same time is on the back of December as well, where we took defeats to, was it Kilmarnock and Hearts? But if you take the Hearts game to then the most recent Hearts game, I believe we won all but one game in there. There's a draw in the middle, I think. So the run actually since kind of the winter break ended to now, Hearts aside, which we've bored ourselves to death with what was wrong with that game, officials especially were up to their usual antics. But that Hearts game aside, we've actually been really quite good results-wise. It's just, as we keep saying, the performances just aren't there. But as you said there, as we've said every weekend that we come onto this podcast and then some, we are ridden all season with injuries. Abada, who was, I think he was involved in about nearly 40-odd goals between assists and goals scored in his first 2 years. He wasn't in the team this year. He was injured, and when he did eventually come back, obviously we know the saga with Abada, who's now in the MLS. Hatati's been out. I brought up the stats a couple of weeks ago. I think he played 9. He is involved in 9 games. No, sorry. He was available for 9 games. He was involved in 8 games, but he still managed to score 4 goals. I think it was in that time, and a couple of assists as well. And lo and behold, he's been back for 2 or 3 games, and he's yet again getting a couple of goals and a couple of assists. He is fundamentally a crucial part of the midfield. Carter Vickers out for large spells of this season. Taylor out for parts of the season as well. It's mental, the injuries. It's not just like if Tony Ralston was injured or Alistair Johnson was injured, one of the two, you'd probably be all right with the other one playing a wee bit. But as soon as Taylor gets injured, we have no other left back. As soon as Carter Vickers gets injured, we have nobody of that stature and that maturity in defence. As soon as McGregor goes or Hatati goes, the midfield falls apart. It is fundamental key components of our team have been injured for large spells of this season. And it's great that they're all coming back. And I think that's where you get that feeling from. The winter break is on the back of the poor performances and results against Kilmarnock and Hearts in December. We've also started dropping points, and they've caught up due to our lack of results. And then it's slowly built, but now we're getting the players back. I think this was 5 games to go now. We're into the split. We're 1 point ahead, assuming that they beat Dundee whenever that game might go.
Yeah.
We're still a point ahead to our good. And although that's kind of been the case before yesterday's game, we've always been able to say for the last 2 weeks that both teams are in a very good position, Celtic and Rangers, where each team could honestly say, win all your games and you'll win the league. And they still can. But yesterday's result just shifts any seed of doubt in their head is now starting to grow. that little thing that they had at the back of their mind, thinking that they had some sort of advantage over us, is gone this weekend, because they now need to come to Celtic Park, and they've not got a chance there. And I think with that, with the injuries coming back and all the rest of it, just build it up. I'm really excited. This could now be the final push for the season, and we'll see it through. But the whole season's been riddled with injuries. It's no wonder we've all felt a wee bit kind of, no scintillating performances. Everything's been a bit lackluster. Everything's been a bit slow and drab. But here we are.
I think that's the thing to
Everything's in our head.
Anthony, is like you're saying, this injury riddled season. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very obvious to us all. This is the first time that we've had a full squad available, in the past couple of weeks. But I think it also does highlight that thing that we're all kind of a bit angry about in the summer and then in January, is the lack of building a squad. So if Carter Vickers is out, we should have adequate cover. If Taylor is out, we should have adequate cover, and we just haven't. And so if we do, if we get by this season and, we get to the heights that we think that we can get to and we will get to, and if we go ahead and, reclaim and hold on to our championship crown, big conversations need to happen within the club, and I'd imagine, sort of going to what Ross was saying earlier, I'm a big fan of Brendan. I know he can divide, but he did come in and said, look, let's have this conversation in May. And I think if we do go ahead and do what we think we're capable of and win this league, I think that's the power he's now going to have to go. We can't leave it this close again. We can't, allow it to be this sort of, even though it's exciting, that there's a title race, there is an element of excitement there, but you want to know that you are, capable in Europe, in the league, to go ahead and win it. And I just hope that those conversations can and will happen. If they will, who knows? It seems to be a conversation we have every time the transfer window's open. I understand that it's trickier now to get players to come and play in the Scottish League. It just is. It's not about Celtic anymore. It's like Celtic used to be this great, the calling card we had was Europe. And you could say, look, you can go and play for, a Villa or a Forest or a, Newcastle or whatever. But, you might just get Champions League, you might not. And with Celtic, you could say you could get Champions League. But it's nothing new to us that the past couple of years of Champions League has not been pretty for Celtic. And unless we really, start getting that money in and building the structure of the club again, it's hard to entice somebody to come and play Champions League football if you're getting beat every single time. It's sort of like you need to somehow make it attractive again. And so I think if they win the league with someone like Brendan in charge, who I do think is trying to grow the club in the right direction, again, people disagree with that, and that's fine. But I think he knows what he's doing. And I think if he's allowed that, and maybe we needed this season of injuries and whatnot to sort of show people, look, we can't be this indecisive again. We can't be on this shaky ground. So fingers crossed.
Listen, I'm totally in the same boat as you in terms of I'm totally behind Brendan Rodgers. I think he's a top class manager, and I absolutely agree with you that we hope that he can be backed in the summer. But right now, we've got what we've got, and we need to get this league title and hopefully a Scottish Cup as well. But I don't know. Listen, it remains to be seen what will happen there. But Anthony, I'll just come back to yourself. I'm going to touch on some player performances on the day. I want to get your thoughts on Adam Ida. In terms of, I spoke about this on Friday night. I'm not going to go too much into the, should we sign him, should we not sign him, because it's not even on the table that we'll be able to sign him. But I just want to get your thoughts on his time at Celtic so far and how you think he's fared, performed, and just his sort of cameo sub-appearance on Saturday as well.
It's kind of hard to answer that, Ross, without eventually saying, should I sign him or not?
Well, I mean, if you want to go into that realm, go for it.
I'll try not to, because we, as you say, we have covered that quite a lot in the podcast in the last couple of episodes. my hands will always be up when we talk about Adam Eder. He wasn't a glamorous signing. He's third choice Norwich, and I know some people in the professional world would hate to use that kind of term because you want to build somebody up rather than shoot them down and say that they're lowly third choice Norwich kind of striker. But that's to fans, that is what he was. And he didn't set anything on fire inside me. He didn't excite me as a signing, a loan deal without an option to buy for a guy who was really surplus to requirements as far as Norwich were concerned when they had signed Sidney van Hooijdonk. Turns out they're not going to be able to sign him full-time either, so that changes things for Ida at Norwich. But for us, he came in and he's kind of ignored all that noise, and he's allowed himself to be taken under Brendan's wing as such. It's clear that Brendan does like his style. It's clear that Brendan's obviously got some sort of quick connection with him. He does appreciate him. You see him always putting his arm around him when he brings him off, and at full time he goes straight up to Adam as opposed to some other players at times. It's just little things you can tell that I wouldn't say it's a Rodgers signing per se, but it's one that he actually does approve of, as opposed to other signings that he's had, not just this season, but in his first stint with Celtic, where he had no idea who some of the players coming into the door were when he was here. So this one is a good signing from Rodgers. He's came in, he's pretty much shut out all the negativity, and fundamentally, has he scored 7 goals now? And he's one of
7.
Arguably,
he's got 7, I think.
Is it 7? I think it's arguably, is it 7 points you could probably contribute to Adam Eder. Obviously, we wouldn't contribute Saturday's game to Adam Eder's goal because we're already 2-0 up and was never in doubt. Mm-hmm. But he's got us the points at Motherwell. He's got his points in other games. So I honestly think we worked out one day there was about 7 points that we can contribute to him and his goal scoring ability. And he's been great. He honestly has been great. But as I've said before, and I kind of have to touch on this because otherwise people will go into other podcasts and other episodes of the show when we go further down the line and think that I'm flip-flopping at times with him. I still wouldn't sign him. There's just something about him when, in those games when he's not scoring, which Motherwell is 2 penalties, of course, not to take anything away, it's crucial goals nonetheless. But sometimes he sees play, and when he's trying to link with the midfield, it's not quite there for me. He's very, that term, raw as a player, and I think we need more from a striker if he's going to play for Celtic long term and take us up a level. I think he's a talented player for a certain level. I just don't think it's for us long term. If we're going to consider ourselves a Champions League team, I don't think he's that kind of player.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, see before I come back at you there, I've noticed there's a few comments asking if I'm sinking and I'm on the Titanic and stuff. Basically, I'm not quite wee anyway, but my camera angle's changed tonight because the last time I was doing the comments, you were getting my big fat sausage fingers on, kept catching the lens of the camera. So I've readjusted things and I'm doing the comments now, and you're not getting the fingers, but the camera angle's slightly different. But touching on Eder, listen, I'm sorry, same sort of lines as you, Anthony, and that, listen, he's come in and done well. I said when we signed him, if he comes in and gets 60-10 goals, then he's done his job. Rodgers clearly rates him. He's come in and done his job. But, listen, I don't know how much he's going to cost if we were to buy him, but you would reckon it would be in the region of £6-7 million. And for me, he's still got a lot of parts of his game that are lacking, but you can see that he can be coached and he can be better, but I don't know if he's worth that sort of layout or outlay just now. But listen, if Celtic decide and Norwich decide that they want to let him go and he comes in, I'm not saying I don't want it to happen, but I wouldn't be rushing out to get him off of what I've seen. But what I mean, exactly. What's that, Anthony?
That's it, exactly. If you, I hate this kind of price range because we slate the club for this price range all the time. But see, if we signed him for £2 to £3 million, I think that is the type of player he is to us, as a £2 to £3 million player. a backup player, there is maybe room for improvement, but there's also that chance that he probably isn't going to. He's probably better as an impact sub, somebody just to give us a different ball when our actual plan A isn't working without spending big money on him. He is that £2 to £3 million player, and if it is that we pay for him, I'm going to be okay with that. I think. But see if we have to spend £6, £7, £8 million, then a club like Celtic should have a recruitment team that can go out and find much, much better for £5, £6, £7, £8 million. If that's what we're going to have to pay for, it would be a lazy signing for me if we paid that much money to be a kind of second choice to Kyogo, who we know is not going to push Kyogo on or overtake Kyogo. The idea for me is that we should be signing a player who challenges Kyogo for the number one spot and takes us up a level.
Listen, I fully agree with that. Same, like 23 million to come in and be that squad player. As long as we've got Kyogo, he's not going to start before him. I'll just come to yourself on that, Ross, just in terms of what you think of his time so far, whether you would sign him or not, and just his performance when he came on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll mix it up with both of you. I think we should sign him. I think if we got a chance, I think he'd be a decent signing. Do I think he's, £8 million signing? No. Do I think he's 6? I mean, I weigh it up against like Ayeti or any of those sort of players that were coming in around that price, and I go, well, he's better than them. I think his hold-up play is very good. I think he's got moments of not Yakimakis final. I get that. But at the beginning, Yakimakis was the same thing. He was coming in, he was holding up that play, which, Kyogo likes to do the run-ins behind. Adam's a bigger lad, and he holds the ball up kind of well and either, gets a foul or gets moving. I think his goal return for us has been pretty damn good since January. Sure, a couple of penalties in there. Yeah, you're right. But I think he's a decent player. Listen, do I think he's Champions League quality? Are we going to, have him up against Barcelona? No, I get it. I don't think he's going to elevate us even more, but I think he's a decent striker to have in amongst the ranks. He's not a goal scorer like Hooper was, but he's perhaps a goal scorer that Stokesy was. He's sort of, I don't know. I feel that he's a decent player. If we were to sign him, I'd be happy with it. I wouldn't want it to stop there. I wouldn't want it to be like, this is our big summer marquee signing. I think there's still room to grow there. He's still young as well. Let's remember that. He's a young lad. Wasn't getting a bite of the cherry. I was like everyone else saying, why are we going for Norwich's third striker? What's the point? But if I'm, putting it down on paper, and he's come and he's shown us, and he's proved a lot of us wrong, I believe, in his goal scoring prowess. The fact that he comes on for like the last 10, 15, 20 minutes and he's getting goals. Maybe he's a SP, Scottish League player. Maybe that's what he is. He's a good. So, 8 million, yeah, out of reach. 3 million, I think, is probably. I don't think we're going to get a 3 million player from a championship team, but maybe. I don't run the finances.
Aye, no. Listen, I don't think for a second we'll get him for 3 million. And you said about obviously you didn't want him to be our marquee signing, but I think if Celtic outlay £67 million on him, they will make that their marquee signing, which for me is a worry because like we've all sort of alluded to, we don't think he is that level to be the marquee signing. But listen, time will tell. I think he's done very well. He's come in. He's a Celtic supporter. There's a bit of pressure with that as well, and he's obviously out of favour with Norwich, but Norwich might still see him as a player that can be good for them, especially obviously with Van Hooijdonk not doing too great by all accounts there. But we'll see what happens with that. I'll just come back to yourself, Ross, on the performance of Yang on Saturday. And obviously, listen, I think I know you're going to say that he didn't play too well. And off the back of that, who, obviously with Maeda out the team now, or out for the season by all accounts, who would you start on that left-hand side, whether it be Yang, Palmer, even James Forrest. Just your thoughts on that.
I think Yang is a work in progress. I think there's moments of real talent with him. Again, I still think he's young. He was Player of the Year over in Korea, right? I think he was.
I'm not sure.
I think he came with like some good sort of back catalogue prestige. So I look at him. He likes to take players on. Yeah, I don't think he's a starter. I don't think he's he's had too many games where he's been off the boil for me. He's not showing that consistency that I would perhaps want in one of the wingers. But not many of the wingers have. I mean, Kuhn's sort of coming into his own now. I know he was sick and he did his thing beforehand. Palmer seemed to go off the boil a little bit, but I do think there's a player in him as well. We all know what I'm going to say. We wish he would cross the ball and be better at running down at the byline and doing it instead of cutting in every time. But he's got a bit of taste in him. He's got a bit of panache. But it's funny that you bring up Jamesy, because every time like they're bringing him on now, I think he's changing the game in a good way. And that sounds weird, because Forrest has been with us for so long, but he's now one of the old guard, and I sort of trust him. I don't know if he's got 90 minutes in his legs. Maybe that's maybe he's a good sort of a bit player. But if you're asking me who do we put in, I didn't know Maeda was out for the season. Is that true?
Well, by all accounts, I think it was a hamstring injury. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but when you're looking at that, there's 5-6 weeks of the season to go. Yeah. I think it'd be difficult to see him coming back. But I don't know if it's been confirmed.
Okay. So I was unaware of that. So, who would I put there? I mean, it would have to be Palmer and Forrest for me. But I like Yang. I think Yang's got something in him, but he's just not on the ball at all times. And maybe that will come with age, bit of experience. What I do like about him is he'll take people on. Now, he may not do it all the time. He might get tackled. But he's got like the sauce to get in there and go, I'm going to try something. And so maybe that'll eventually pay off. Maybe that's something that we like. He is trying to beat players. I know he was sort of held a little bit accountable for the third Rangers goal the other week. He got wrong-footed by that one boy that keeps doing the same thing. So maybe there's a little naivety in him. But that was my...
listen, I totally agree with that. For me, I think it was Stephen. I brought the comment up earlier. I'm in agreement with me. I can't find the comment now, but he basically said that he's probably the most talented winger at the club. Now, I know that Brendan Rodgers said James Forrest is. I think probably on paper you would have to say he is. But I understand what he's saying about Yang. Yeah, it's there, in fact. I understand what he's saying about Yang. I think in terms of ability, I think he has it all inside him and it's there to be brought out. I think if any manager can do it, it can absolutely be Brendan Rodgers. And the other thing I'll say about Yang is, even, listen, a lot of the time this season, it hasn't been going well, but he never ever hides in the game. He still tries the same things. It doesn't come off. He tries it again. He was doing that on Saturday. Yeah. Things weren't coming off from him, but he keeps trying. And listen, I said earlier in the podcast, it might well be that it turns out he's not got the mentality to play for Celtic. He wouldn't be the first. He wouldn't be the last. But just come to yourself, Anthony, on that, and whether you think, who do you think should play in the left now that we've not got Maeda, and just obviously Yang's performance on Saturday?
Oh, the left wing spot has to be Palmer's, no doubt, no question about it. He's the only natural left winger that we've got now that Maeda's out, who everybody knows on this podcast. I don't actually think Maeda's a very good left winger. At the best of times, I would probably have Palmer ahead of him, to be honest, unless we're playing big games like against them or in Europe. I think Maeda does have some really good qualities when it's not coming up against park buses, and he's got a bit of room to run, and he's tracking back and all the rest. I think he does have some good qualities in those games. But going forward, it has to be Palmer on the left, 100%. When it comes to the right side, you've obviously got that moment where Yang had 2 or 3 games and he was starting to look really good, and then he gets to the red card, and then Kuhn comes back in, and as Ross says earlier, we obviously now know in hindsight he had a bit of a weight health issue when he first came in, so now he's back to a bit more natural fitness for the size of him, and he's starting to look decent as well. Both of them are going to blow hot and cold, more so Yang, in my opinion, because Yang is more of an inexperienced player, albeit he did win, I think it was 2022's Korean Young Player of the Year. I think he won. That's great, but that must have been like his first season of professional football or something. And then he's played another half season or season, and then he's came here in 2023. And when you think about it, I think his stats are that he's only now just played 100 professional football games in his career, which is not a lot. It's actually quite a fair amount of number for a 21-year-old, but it's really not a lot. And he is still young, and he is still developing. So when people see that he was having a couple of good games before the lead up to the Hearts game where he got sent off, yeah, he is having those good games, but he's also equally going to come back and have some pretty honking games as well, because he's young, he's developing, he's came literally across the other side of the world. All of the culture and all the rest of it, we know it's a cliche and we don't like to think about it as a football fan, that players need time to adapt and settle into the place. But you're going from Korea to Scotland, that's a massive culture shock. That's probably one of the biggest culture shocks you're probably going to find, is coming from the kind of Far East to Britain as a whole, let alone Europe, but Britain as a whole is a pretty large culture shock. So he's got that to develop with. He's got his own talent to develop with, new players, teammates, all this. So he's going to blow hot and cold, purple patches and peaks and troughs and all that stuff. So I'm not going to get caught up the fact that Yang has came back after being wrongly sent off. Maybe his confidence took a wee bit of a hit as well, and he's not looking as flashy. But we've got Kuhn in his place, so that works out good for me. It's nice that we've got the two of them on the right side, but I think this is what Ross was kind of going for as well. I see in the comments that the pace isn't there with James Forrest and Palmer, and maybe it's not. But there's a lot to be said that if you were to see out the rest of the season with James Forrest and Lewis Palmer as your wingers, that there's probably more experience and more savvy about that to see it out, and more confidence that as a winger, kind of two-pairing option with Kyle Go or Ida up front, that's probably going to see you through more confidently than relying on a hot and cold Yang or Kuhn, especially if one's going to flip to the left.
Well, for me, I agree with a lot of what you've said there. In terms of the right-hand side, I think Kuhn has the jersey. I think absolutely. I love James Forrest, but I think he's an impact player now. And by the way, what a player to have to be an impact player. He'll come off that bench when games are tight, or when we're maybe even cruising a game, and he'll affect the game. As Ross said earlier in the podcast, he's come on in recent weeks, and every single time he's affected the game in a positive manner. On the left-hand side, Yang was really, really poor on Saturday. I still think he's got something to offer. I don't know. I don't know if it would maybe be sort of play the fixture type of thing, in terms of whether you flip-flop between him and Palmer. For me, when there's a low block, I think Palmer is largely ineffective because he comes inside all the time. Listen, if he got a shot off, sometimes he can find a worldie. But he worries me that he's quite slow. I was a big advocate of him at the start, but I do find him quite slow. I don't think he stretches a defence in the way that maybe a Yang can when he's on form. Is Yang better than Palmer right now? I don't know. But I think that Maeda it's a huge loss, especially going into that Rangers game. So I don't know which one I would start on the left. Would I even maybe? I know I've said James Forrest can be an impact player, but would you even start him on the left? It's a tough one, but these are the decisions that Brendan Rodgers will have to make between now and the end of the season, and I trust the guy to do it. I think he's been excellent in recent weeks, even in the media and that. I'll just come to yourself, Ross, on Rodgers, I know we've sort of touched on him briefly, but I think in the last few weeks, he said, I can't remember if it was before the game at the weekend or after, that he said Celtic is a club that they come alive at this stage of the season. I just think we sound bites like that, and like recent weeks he says we'll write our own story. I think that he's playing a blinder off the field right now, and getting into the sort of opposition heads. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think his whole his whole motive is just to get in opposition heads, but I think he's doing it because he's a smart man. Yeah, and I love it when he gives a battle cry. And I know people chewed him over a little bit after the last derby game or 2 derby games ago, where he's like, they've been told me they're here for like the last 15 games I've played against them, and I'm still going to go out and play my game. And I think he's smart in that sense. He won't get into the back and forth clickbait, but I think he knows this club, and I think he loves the club. I think he's a supporter of Celtic. Again, I know people go back and forth with it, but he always has been. And so there's a part of him where he's like, yeah, we are a better side. And I don't think it's necessarily just about let me wind up the others or get in their heads. I think it's like he knows that footballing wise, technical ability, skill, passion, mentality, all of these things, Celtic are far superior than others in our league at that. We are the best side. And it's just whether or not we can keep, you just keep showing that. And when we have a couple of hiccups, or if we're running, low on because injuries have taken some of the squad away, or perhaps we didn't buy right in the transfer market and all that kind of stuff, that's infuriating as a fan. But the truth is, right now, on paper and on playing ability, you watch some of the second half against St Mirren, we were excellent. It's what Anthony was saying earlier too. It's like you watch certain halves of games that we've played. Our football was phenomenal. There's some really great movement there, and we are a good team, and all we need to do is just keep that, get a little consistency with it. I mean, we sound like a broken record, but so yeah, he's a very good coach for Celtic because he knows what to say, he knows how to say it. He's a mature man. He doesn't take much nonsense, and he does it differently to how perhaps Postecoglou did it. But he still knows how to set it up for the game. We're only concerned about this game. I'm not going to talk about that. This is what we're after.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I'm sure he has rattled a few people. They will be worried.
Just what you said there. I think he done something like that in his press conference on Friday, didn't he? Where they were starting to talk about something else, and he went, "We've got a game at the weekend." I can't remember exactly what it was, but I think I really do think he's playing a blinder now, and I think as much as Celtic come alive at this stage of the season, I think Brendan Rodgers is thriving off of this title race, and he's totally coming into his own. What's that, Ross?
I think he's relishing it. I think he's really...
he absolutely is. Right, and listen, I don't know a lot about Clement's past history. I think he's won a league title in Belgium, possibly. I might be wrong. But I think Brendan Rodgers' experience, as well as like the team obviously doing the business on the pitch, but Brendan Rodgers' experience in title races in the past, even at Liverpool, I think it's going to be invaluable for us, Anthony. How do you think he's been in the last number of weeks? Obviously, with the media, and then obviously with the players, and getting the confidence to be producing on the pitch in recent games.
Hugh Keevans, I guess none of you would have listened to Cloud One at the weekend, because why the fuck would you, if you can help it? But listen to the radio on the game. I ended up listening to the Super Scoreboard stuff afterwards, and Hugh Keevans actually came back after that interview that they done with Rodgers, and it was all the, everything we've just said, all the kind of battle cry lines that he had, and he made a good point. That is, he's literally, Rodgers right now, and has done for a couple of weeks now, he's literally telling us the fans, he's telling us what the team talks are. He's telling us what he's telling the guys in the dressing room, and I want to believe the romantic side of it, that see that half-time against Motherwell, that's probably the shit that we've seen and somehow got through to them at some point in that Motherwell game, and then they come out in the second half and we play some of the best football we've played all season. And was it 2-3 games later, again leading up to the Hearts game, wasn't it, that we just kept playing really good football. We were actually playing good football for 90 minutes at spells, but we're now back to this kind of this pick and choose which half is going to be the real good one. And see, so long as you only, as long as you're still in the game come the second half, and the second half is a good one, then that's fine. No, for now. But he is playing a blinder. He is managing the media and the fans right now superbly. And it's night and day, guys. See, when you think about what he was being saying in the first half of the season, he's very negative. He's very much, he seemed like he was flip-flopping at times, especially when it came to transfers and talking about what was happening in the club, talking about how we were going to sign 4 or 5 quality players in January. We're only going to sign quality players who are going to take us up a level. And yet we got Adam Ida as a loan signing, and who was unfit. And when he first came in, hold my hands up again, doesn't look a good player, does he? Did he? He's now looking a lot better. So hands are held up. We obviously know why he didn't look too sharp at first. But his attitude's now changed. He's went from... There's a little bit, Ross, you were saying it kind of earlier on, like coming into the next transfer window, is Rodgers the man now? He's got that power now to say to the club, look, we can't go through another season where it's this close. It's great to have a title race, but we can't be this nervy about it. It should be a title race that we are confident to win, not one that we're relying on something else happening for us to get the win. But it's different with Rodgers now, that he's got all that at the back burner, all that negativity, all that kind of stuff, and he's now focusing on the here and now and the progression going forward. And he really is coming up with the cries that we want to hear as fans. We want to hear him motivate himself, motivate us and the players, and it's brilliant. He is playing blinder, Ross. He is.
I think that you sort of alluded to there, Anthony, but I think the biggest difference is, I think earlier in the season, off the back of certainly the summer transfer window, I think he was a bit pissed off, and there was mixed messages and there was no consistency. But now there's a consistent narrative coming out for Rodgers, and he's created that sort of, dare I say it, sort of siege mentality. We're all together and we're going for one goal, and that is the league title. And then you've obviously got the Scottish Cup in amongst that, which is coming up at the weekend. We'll touch on that a wee bit later. Before we move on, I just want to, I'll come to you, Ross. I want to touch on, obviously, Nawrocki came in at the weekend. I think he played about an hour. Again, he's come off and Stephen Welsh has come on, obviously because he's not played a lot of football, and neither is Stephen Welsh, so he split it between them, if you like. But if he gets he's got an hour under his belt. If he starts again at the weekend, maybe gets more minutes under his belt. When Liam Scales is back fit, does Liam Scales come back into the team, or do you give Nawrocki the run to the end of the season if he does okay?
I like the big man. I liked him when he first came in. I think there's a real good player in him. I think Scales came in and did a wonderful job and had us all on our, off our seats going, oh my God, he's great. I've started to see a couple of instances now where I go, he's still, I'm not sure he's the number one centre-back or number two centre-back, because Carter Vickers is obviously our anchor. Is it Nawrocki or Nawrocki? I don't know.
Nawrocki? I'm not sure. I've been calling him Nawrocki.
I think he's a brilliant player. I mean, I really do. And it's also been one of those confusing things to me. Again, I don't know what's going on inside the dressing room, but it was bizarre to me that him and Lager Bielka were both down the pecking order, because I thought they were both showing glimpses of being decent centre-backs. And I was sort of surprised as to why neither of them are getting played, and why, Welshie was going ahead of them, or I think at one point I can't remember, they put somebody else. I was like, I don't know what's going on. It might be a training thing. It might be a personality thing. Who knows? But I like him. I like Nawrocki. And so or Norowski, whatever. George, I like George. But I think he's a decent player. So if you're asking me, does Scalesy come back in? Let's see. Give Norowski a couple of runs, a couple of games, and let's see how he's doing. I mean, it doesn't bother me. When I saw his name on the team sheet, I was actually pleasantly surprised. And I was like, oh, cool. Mm-hmm. Like, it wasn't like, what do you mean? Which I can sometimes get with our center backs. I was like, no, I have trusted him. I think he passes a great ball. I think he's strong. He's big. He seems like he's got a little bit of grit in him. And I like Scalesy for a number of reasons. But I do feel that, there has been times now he tends to give the ball away a lot. He tends to lose it a little bit here and there. That might just be a couple of, dodgy games that I'm picking up on, because he did play great when he first came in. But I never really saw him as like the number 2 centre back. And I've been surprised, sometimes pleasantly, but I've been surprised that he's been the staple of the centre back situation with Carter Vickers. So give Norowski a couple of goes. I like him.
I can't disagree with that. Similar to yourself, when I seen his name on the team sheet, I was slightly surprised. I thought he would have probably went with Welsh, but I was pleasantly surprised, just the same as yourself. And I think he came in and he done well for an hour. For me, there's a couple of guys. They're a bit of a mixed kind of bag in the comments on Scales. I think for me, Liam Scales has done well this season. Absolutely can't get away from that, Anthony. But for me, there has been bits of his game that I've noticed. He cannot be Celtic's first choice partner alongside Carter Vickers going forward into next season. For me, I think that he makes bad choices in terms of passing out for the back. He turns back quite a lot, and he'll pass himself into problems. Listen, Nawrocki, we've not seen a great deal of him, so maybe we'll start making that judgment on him. But what I've seen in Nawrocki so far, I think he is okay. He's got a decent recovery pace, as his Scales. But I think Nawrocki just looks a bit more accomplished on the ball. But I don't know what your thoughts are on that, and or whether you like Scales and think that he should come straight back into the team when he's fit.
Is he out for the next game?
Well, I don't know, but for the purpose of this debate, just pretend he is.
Pretend he is. He is back. All right, that changes things.
No, pretend he's out.
Pretend he's out. Oh, even better then. I've made it no secret or anything that the way I try and talk about the Celtic team, and used to have said similar in your points there. The number 1 pairing, or the number 1/number 2 centre back, Scales isn't that for Celtic. And I mean no disrespect to Scales at all, because he's came in this season where we have been riddled with injuries, and he stepped up to the plate and he's delivered time and time and time again in big moments and big games. But you can still see that he's not quite the level that we need. Again, maybe a bit like Adam Ida, I just don't think he's at the level that we need to be a professional club in the UEFA Champions League. He is a quality player at SPFL level. He would be Aberdeen's best defender every day of the week. Motherwell, Hibs and Hearts and all the rest. He would absolutely walk into those teams every day of the week. But I don't think he takes us up a level anyway. Is he our 4th choice centre back? Yeah, sure. Not a problem with that. Not a problem at all with that. But what we need as a club is somebody to truly partner Carter Vickers and be an equal to Carter Vickers. And then we need a 3rd choice, so that when one of them needs rested, injured, booked, suspended, the 3rd one can come in and there's no drop-off in quality. And for a moment, you kind of were hoping, I can't remember if the timescales fall in line with here, so apologies if it doesn't, but you're kind of looking at summer thinking, right, Starfelt and Carter Vickers, that's a decent pair, we can go with that. Yeah, of course, Carter Vickers was the better one, but Starfelt was just fine enough for us. And you were thinking, Nawrocki comes in and he should become the 3rd choice. Do we spend 5 million on him? I think it was, or something like that.
And he came from a very good team. He came from a
look here, yeah.
Mhm.
Look here, also it's a player that should be walking into our side as that third option, and then you can look at Welsh stepping up. You can maybe look at Wilson Lowell coming back from his loan spell, or Liam Scales keeping his place in the squad as an adequate squad player. But Scales can't be one of the first 2 or 3 players that are thought about as a centre back for Celtic. We need better. Is Navrocki going to be it? Don't know yet. He's not had enough game time. Is Lagerbielke going to be it? Again, not seen enough of him. Probably not, because there is probably something behind the scenes that isn't liked about Lagerbielke, and that's a shame. But that is what football is sometimes. But we need to go into this summer window and think about this seriously. Is it Navrocki and Carter Vickers, and thus a third option needs purchased, or do we need 2 other centre backs purchased to make that trio up? And to find that out, we need to use these next 5, potentially 7 games and find out what Navrocki actually has about him. So if Scales is out for the weekend, this is the ideal time to bring him in. And if Navrocki has a good game against Aberdeen in the Cup semi-final, then he keeps his place, because we need to see what him and Carter Vickers can do, so we can get into the summer transfer window and decide, is that a partnership we're worth sticking with, or do we need to go out and find better?
Mm-hmm. Aye, well, I think that's a fair way of putting it. It's quite logical, and I would actually totally agree with that. I think that if Navrocki does well in the next game, then I think, for me, you stick with him between now and the end of the season, because I don't think that Liam Scales, it's up for debate if Navrocki can be the Carter Vickers partner, but I don't think, for me, that Scales can be going into next season. As I've said, he's done well, but I don't know. Time will tell in that.
Ross? As a club, we brought in 2 centre-backs last year. We did bring in the 2 people to take care of the Starfelt situation. And so there must be something going on for the coach not to pick Rocky. Like, I don't know why he wasn't getting picked. It was, unless Scales was just absolutely electric in training, who knows? Or if there's, Rocky's not good in training, who knows? But every time I've seen him, he looks like a decent centre-back option to me. And he would have been my pick once Starfelt had gone. And of course, I know Scales went in and was covering some injuries and whatnot, and did very well for us. But yeah, there's 2. I think he's a wonderful bench player. I think he's a great backup. If his name came up on a sheet, I'd be like, okay, all right, I trust him for a game. This is good. It's not that bomb scare that we've had over the years with our centre backs. But yeah, I don't know if there's something that we don't know, or they're not showing up, because Rocky to me seems like he should be having that spot. Anyway.
I think that a lot of it's to do with, obviously, he's been in and out the team. A lot of it's been due to injury and fitness. So he might get a better run at it next season. And I am not saying for 1 second that we should get rid of Liam Scales. Absolutely think we should keep him in and around the club as a squad player. And obviously, you've talked about getting into the market, Anthony. If Navrocki proves that he can be the good, or a good partner for Carter Vickers, then I'm quite happy to go with that, and I'm quite happy to keep Liam Scales in and around the team as that backup. I mean, listen, don't get me wrong, if we can get better than both of them, and if somebody's going to come in that's going to do the job alongside Carter Vickers better than them, then I'm totally like on board with that as well. What's that stupid question here, folks? What did that say? Is this Ross McCall, the actor from Green Street? I'll let you answer that, Ross.
Maybe.
maybe he's aye, maybe he's not. It is. But we'll move on for that. And obviously, we've briefly touched on it. But we'll touch on it a wee bit more. Anthony, Rangers obviously lost at the weekend, which puts us in the driving seat. We're 4 points clear. Rangers have got a game in hand, but still playing Wednesday. That game, I think, becomes even more difficult than it was possibly last week or the week before, when they shunted it along I think they've sort of done themselves up a wee bit here, and that they could have played that game before they played us, but they were worried. I think it's coming to light now that they were worried about players getting booked and maybe missing the Celtic game. But now it's turned out that I think it's a more pressurised, more difficult game for them. But I was asked on Friday night, I think Stephen was the host, I was asked what the sort of probability or how I felt their chances were to win the league title now. So my question to both of you is, percentage-wise, probability of us winning the league title, I said on Friday night, it was 49-51% in our favour. So what are you at now after the weekend's events?
Kind of like I tried to say earlier on, the two clubs after the weekend before could both sit down and say, look, win all your games and you win the league. But the Rangers would have had that little thing that they would be saying, well, we've technically got that point advantage. So it's kind of theirs to throw away, per se. That has now swung in our little favour, combined with the fact that the last Rangers Celtic game is going to be at Celtic Park, so even better in our favour. If you want to put percentages on it or kind of betting man sort of thing, I would say we're going to win the league. I think it is ours to lose at this stage now, quite literally. It's not as close as 49-51, 50-50. I think I'm more 85-90% sure that we're going to win this league now, if not a little bit more, but I don't want to be too cocky about it. I think it's... Yeah, I think you're right with what you're saying, though, with the game for them to play Dundee potentially this midweek, obviously. It's backfiring on them, I think, where they've... obviously, they never wanted to postpone the game originally, like go back last month sort of thing. That wasn't the goal, but things have happened in that time. And things are coming to light that, yeah, they'll deny it all, tinfoil hats on for us and all the paranoia and stuff, but it's been proven year after year after year that we're not paranoid enough at times. That there is a cahoot between them and the governing bodies. There is a familiarity between them. Look at everything that's happened with five-way agreements and all the rest of it. You'd be deluded not to think that something may be going on. So we should question it. And it's interesting that the two postponements now have actually went in their favour twice. Possibly in hindsight, but it has went in their favour twice. They've not had to play a game on a really dogged pitch where they would get potentially more injuries, potentially bookings, and just really lethargic and tired out running on such a crap pitch before they had to play us. And they've now got to the stage, though, that, you know, assuming that Dundee don't win 5-0, which is what the SPFL must surely assume might happen on Wednesday night to deliver the announcement of the next fixtures. But it's a game that they must win now, because nobody thought they were going to drop points, let alone a defeat against Ross County yesterday. So they now need to win that game, because if they don't, their season really is over. They can still hold it in the hand slightly if they win it, but it's really is a must-win for them, as much as a must-win game ever has been for them. This is a must-win game.
Listen, it is a must-win game, and I have said that there's even more pressure on it than there was before. It's huge pressure, but for what it's worth, I do think they'll go out and win that game, and it'll be down to a point. Listen, it was a great result. It's what we all wanted on Sunday. I'm still sitting here, as I said, on Friday night, I was 49-51% in our favour to go and win the league, and that was us. Obviously, Rangers had the games in hand where they could have went in front of us, but we had that home game against them, and I think that's what was just giving us the slight edge, because I felt we would win at home against them. But I still feel like that. I still feel like there's a lot of football still to be played, though. So I'm probably sitting at maybe 45-55% in our favour to win the league. But Ross, just obviously how you feel, or what you feel that the probability is winning the league now, and talk about the pressure for them on Wednesday night.
I think as our boss says, it's one game at a time. It's down to us. We shouldn't be looking elsewhere for results. If we win every game from here to the end, we win the league. Even if we, if we win every game, we've won. So it's literally in our hands. I know the players are all up for it. I know everybody's excited for it. They all know what the passion is. And if we play the football that we can, if we play the way that we know that we can, and the way that we've proved at times we can, we will win this league. Percentage-wise, who knows? Who knows? All I can say is game by game, keep picking up the points. We don't have to rely on anyone else. We don't have to look elsewhere for results. I actually think Dundee's going to be very tricky for them.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be it will go, it's one way or the other. I mean, they might batter them. I don't know. But I think it's going to be a tricky game because of sort of what you guys are alluding to too. There is a mind game now, which will go either in their favor or not. Rangers will go there and really try and, cement their fight, or Dundee will turn them over.
Mm-hmm.
And, if that happens, then we're having another conversation. But right now, for me, I could care less what's going on elsewhere. If we go and we win our games, that's all we need to do.
Well, that's it. I mean, we have got it fully in our hands now, and that's what we all wanted.
Yep.
And for me, I think that, listen, I don't watch Rangers all the time, but they looked like they were playing with a nervousness, albeit when I put it on, there was about 15 minutes to go and they were down 3-1, but they didn't look comfortable at all. And then I watched the highlights, and they were sort of at 6s and 7s for a lot of the game. And I look at Celtic, and as much as they weren't absolutely brilliant at times on Saturday, they were in total control. They didn't look like they were playing on their sort of nerves. Are you slipping down the seat, Anthony, in homage to me there?
I'm just seeing how far down you must be sloped. That's quite painful.
Actually, it's just the camera angle, but I do keep sliding down this seat.
Well,
I keep pushing myself up.
Is that your assistant holding the camera down there? Is that what it is?
This is my best angle.
Yeah.
If you go over the top, you can see my full baldness. But no, listen, you spoke about their one game at a time, Ross. So that takes me on to, obviously, the fixture list. We were hoping it would come out the day. It hasn't transpired like that because obviously there's this game still to play between Rangers and Dundee that we've been speaking about. But just for a wee bit of fun, if nothing else, I'll come to yourself first, Ross, and just sort of try and predict how you think the fixtures will get put to Celtic. So there's 5 games to go. I think we're due to play Kilmarnock away. I think we're due to play, obviously, Rangers at home. I think Dundee at home, St Mirren away, and possibly Hearts at home. I think we've got three games at home and 2 away. So how do you think the sort of cards will be dealt to us in that, without just as a prediction?
What do you mean? The cards will be dealt with?
Well, how do you think? What order do you think the fixtures will be given to us? I.e., do you think we'll play Kilmarnock first, Rangers second, or?
No idea. I've literally got no answer for you, because I'm like, I've no idea how it will come out, who it will come out, and honestly, I don't care. I'm like, I just want to go. I think we can beat all these teams that we're coming up against if we play our game. And, if we end up having Rangers and Hearts, like, flip it, who cares? Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter who's in front of us. If we go out and play the football that I know that we can play, if we're going out with a squad that is fully fit and as fit as it can be, and the skill level that we have on 90 minutes, or let's say, 97 minutes, it tends to sort of be what happens. I really, everyone's sort of commenting too. Yeah, who cares? let's just take our game one by one and play the way that we're supposed to play, and hopefully we'll get through.
Aye, listen, I can't disagree with that. It was just a sort of wee bit of fun just to kind of fill up the end of the
Ross, I ruined the fun. Who cares?
You're a party pooper, man. You'll know me back.
Yeah, it's just game by game, man. They can, it doesn't matter.
No, but listen, I agree. Like it doesn't, like, as long as we play our game, and there's people agreeing with you, Ross, and saying it doesn't matter. In terms of, like, definitely, if we go and play our game, then we should win all the games on paper. But we all know football doesn't work like that. And I think there's a couple of sticky games there for us. I wrote down how I think the fixtures would come out just for the purpose of this. So I had Kilmarnock. I think that'll be the first tie, which is away. And I think, for me, I think that's probably, as much as we've got Rangers to play, I think that's probably, Rangers on paper is the most difficult game. But I think that's the one. And I would rather we got that out the way before we played Rangers, because I think the Rangers game will be the second game after the split. So, listen, if we get the Kilmarnock game out the way, regardless of what happens on Wednesday night, and then we take care of Rangers, I think that all but seals it for us. Albeit there's still 3 games to go, and it's still only a point. Probably if we beat Rangers, it would be 4 points with 3 games to go. But listen, I totally understand it's one game at a time. But I went Kilmarnock, Rangers, Dundee, St Mirren, and then last game of the season at home to Hearts. I think the 3, Dundee, St Mirren, Hearts, are definites to win. And I think the 2 sticky ones, Anthony, are Kilmarnock away and Rangers at home. But I still fancy us to beat Rangers. But I don't know if you wrote down how you think the fixtures will come out. But regardless of that, just what games you think are the sticky ones, if you agree with me or not.
Ross, I've got to be honest, I don't write anything down when I do a podcast. I just wing it. I kind of don't want to come out and be all tinfoil hat when Ross has basically said the exact thing that we should be saying. One game at a time, and just get on with it. It doesn't matter what it is. I think it's very, very true. However, I do think if the SFA, SPFL, SPL, whoever you want to call them these days, if they could cherry pick the order, it would be Hearts at home, Kilmarnock away, Rangers at home as the first 3, and they'll love to see us get battered pillar to post before the Rangers game and just see if they can just get us to drop as many points as possible. If they could do that, they would. I don't think they're going to be allowed to, due to the fact that would make the Rangers game a title decider. So the delay for me is literally them trying to figure out where that Celtic Rangers game goes. They need to know where that lies. And it's nothing to do with Dundee. Could they score 5 goals and thus potentially change the 5th and 6th position with St Mirren? It's all to do with, will Rangers drop points, and will it make a potential Celtic Rangers title decider if they play it the second game or the third game? Because then obviously there's only 6 or 9 points still to play for, all depending on what goes on there. But it really doesn't matter. I think we will get one of Hearts that come on at first. I really think we will get one. One of the harder games first, and then we'll keep that hard game for later on. Dundee and St Mirren should be no offence to them, same as Ross said earlier, really no disrespect to them, but they should be no problem to us. Resource-wise and all this, everybody coming back from injuries and fitness, it should be no problem against those 2. But obviously, Kelly and Hearts, they're going to be tough games for me.
Aye. I totally agree. I agree with you. I think it will be Kilmarnock or Hearts will be the first game, and I think Rangers will definitely, almost certainly, be the second game. I think 3 of the last 4 seasons, Rangers have been the second game after the split, because it's the one that you would have to say it's highly unlikely to be a title decider, whether it's a close race or Celtic are further ahead like they have been in previous seasons. But again, it was just a bit of fun, but it doesn't really matter. I know it doesn't really matter at all. It's one game at a time. It's the old cliche, but we'll see what happens. We'll see what I think the fixtures are maybe going to get, but it'll either be tomorrow or Wednesday. I could be totally wrong on that, but I'm more intrigued just to see the fixtures, just so we know where we are, what we're playing, and I can start putting things around about that and pushing the family to the side to go and watch the game and stuff like that. It's how it is.
Of course.
But listen, we've got this weekend. We've got a Scottish Cup semi-final tie, which is going to give us a wee reprieve for the pressure and the ups and downs of this title race. But again, it's another trophy that we want to go for. It's part of a double, and it's, listen, if nothing else, it's another trophy that we want to stop Rangers getting their hands on. Because if we don't win it, the likelihood is they will. But I'll just come to you, Ross. I don't want to go too deep into it, because the guys later in the week will obviously touch on this game when it's coming closer to the weekend. But how do you think, just briefly, how you think the game might go and how we'll fare?
I think Hampden is been a really great place for us and Brendan. I think it's been a good place for us over the years. You know, it's not the greatest stadium, you know, but it's like a good it's a good day out. I've been lucky to do some of the Hampden runs. Cup football can be banana skins. We all know that. But again, and I just sound like a broken record, and I get it. If we play our game, we'll be fine. Mm-hmm. We, you know, as far as who's a better side, Celtic are the best side in the country by a mile. And if they show up and they do their normal thing, we'll be fine and we'll get through. You know, it'll be a good spectacle. I mean, it's always a great day out, Hampden. You know, I've been there a couple of times where it's, you know, turn the angles and, you know, a goal goes against us, but then we get the winners, and it's like such a great electric atmosphere. And, you know, again, I'm sure they're just focused on this one game, play our game, show up, we'll be all right. And then we'll discuss a final.
Yep, absolutely agree with that. And listen, this Aberdeen team have been totally indifferent this season, Anthony. But it's well, so Celtic to an extent. Yeah. But by Celtic standards anyway. But it's a one-off game. Aberdeen will be up for it. It's a semi-final. How could you not be up for that? But like Ross says, if we turn up and play our game, much like every single week, then we go and win the game. And if we don't win the game, huge disappointment. But we would have to pick ourselves back up really quickly. But that doesn't bear thinking about. I think we go and win that game on Saturday.
Yeah, I believe it'll be a reasonably comfortable performance and a win for Celtic. We've always said it about Hampden. It's a nice wide pitch. It suits our style of football. I believe Aberdeen will come and try and win that game. They're not going to get relegated, but they are auditioning really for the new manager about to come in. So they will want to come in and try and at least make a final. If not win the cup, they'll at least want to make the final and have something to cheer the season about, because the season's been pretty miserable. So expect Aberdeen to come and play football. But if they do come and play football against Celtic, then that big wide open pitch allows Celtic to play the way that we do. It should still be a comfortable win for us. I don't see anything but Celtic win. And I don't mean that to be cocky. It's what it is. Again, back to the size of the squads and the quality of players, it should be a Celtic win.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, listen, before we wrap up, dare I say it, he's wanting to give a wee score prediction. It's just a bit of fun, Ross. 4-1. 4-1. What are you thinking, Ross?
17-0.
Oh, I would take that. Is it 17 in the second half, though?
17. 14 of those are in injury time. No, I think, you know, I hate giving the predictions. I'm a killjoy, I know. I just think we'll win. So,
aye,
whatever that may be.
Aye, listen, Patrick McLaughlin, he's went 2-0.
2-0.
I think that I would take a hassle-free 2-0. Paul McFarlane has gone 3-0. Again, we would all take that. I think it. Listen, I think it'll be a comfortable day for us, and hopefully we get to another final and we book that place for the. I think it's the 25th of May in the Hampden Showpiece, and hopefully when we go into that game, we'll have the league title in the bag, and we go into that game, and it probably you would have to expect that it would be Rangers we would be playing, so it would be a fabulous day out, and hopefully we can obviously put the cherry on the cake and win that trophy. But there's a lot of football to be played a number of weeks before it happens, and as I always say, time will tell. But listen, I think that's us covered.
You packing up your shirt? Like, what's going on? You got like he's like packing up the shirt.
I know.
Everything away.
He's getting ready for his bed. He's got an early start.
I mean, just call it a night, mate.
Second monitor, just packing it all up, you know.
Oh, the second
monitor. Oh, the second monitor.
That's as his assistant.
I get distracted from.
Third world problems. But aye, listen, I think that's us covered everything for the night. Have you enjoyed it?
I've had a wonderful time. It's nice to see you both, and I'm sorry I've been missing for a few months, just been busy, but I'm glad that I managed to jump on in.
Aye, no, it's good to have you back. As I say, I always say, you know your stuff about Celtic. You're just a proper fan like the rest of us. And it's great to have you part of the show when you can, and we really appreciate you giving up your time as well.
You got it.
But yourself, Anthony, have you enjoyed the night?
As always, I love coming on a podcast, just getting all this stuff off your chest. And this is one of the weeks where it's been a smile on my face throughout most of it, I think. It's been a good one, just being full of positivity. And I want to say again, Ross, for coming on. I think it's the second time I've seen you on. Brilliant to have you on. Please, anytime you can.
Thanks, pal.
Right. And by the way, I was the same. I actually didn't expect to be on the night, and then I got asked to host, and I thought this might actually be quite a good one to host off the back of what happened yesterday. But I'd just like to say thanks to everybody who's stuck with us. I don't know how many we had live. I don't know where that bit is on the screen, but who cares? There was a lot of folk watching. What's that?
4 million.
4 million. Well, that's down for Friday. We had 5 on Friday. But no, listen, thanks to everybody who's commented and took part in the show and watched it. And any new commenters, I've not seen any, but if I've missed you, I apologise. But thanks very much for the support, and again, like, subscribe and all that jazz. But I think on Wednesday night we'll be back with the double pivot. I'm not sure who's on, but it'll be the usual time, 8:30, and that's it. So, what is it? I can't mind what his thing was. So I'll just say, hail, hail.
Whatever you want.
Aye, hail, hail.
Wave,
cheers,
boys.
guys. Bye.